Okay, so welcome back to the deep dive. And today, we're gonna really zero in on something I think we all think about a lot, saving money.
Saving money always top of mind.
It really is. And, you guys shared this amazing resource with us, and it's from NerdWallet.
Yeah, NerdWallet, always a great resource.
It is. And the title is so good, too. 28 proven ways to save money.
Yeah.
But I feel like sometimes when you see a title like that, it's almost like too much information overload.
I know, it can feel a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah, so that's our mission today, is to kind of cut through all that personal finance advice and pull out the stuff that's really going to make a difference right now, the stuff that you can actually use today.
Exactly, and give you a little shortcut to really understanding, those core saving techniques.
Yeah, and what I really like about the way that this NerdWallet guide is put together is it's in these categories, and it helps us kind of move through the information logically.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about budgeting first, because they call that the bedrock of it all.
And then we're going to talk about tackling debt, and then cutting those bills that you get every month.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk about being a smarter shopper, and then saving on transportation.
Right.
And then even entertainment. Finding ways to have fun without spending a lot of money.
Yeah. Make sure we enjoy life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's start right off with what they're calling the bedrock budgeting.
Right. And they really emphasize that you have to know where your money's going now as the first step. What's coming in versus what's going out.
Right, it's like a map.
Exactly. Until, you're just kind of wandering around.
And they have different ways to actually do that budgeting part. So the first one they talk about is this 50-30-20 rule.
Yeah. It's a pretty popular framework.
Yeah.
And it basically just suggests, splitting your after-tax income into those three buckets. So 50% is for your needs, like housing, food, the things you absolutely have to cover.
Yeah.
Then 30% is for your wants.
Oh, that's entertainment and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Dining out, hobbies, that kind of discretionary spending.
And then the final 20% is for your savings and any debt payments you might have.
Okay, so it's a pretty simple way to think about it, but they do say this isn't the only way to budget. So what are some of the other ways?
Yeah, they mentioned a couple others. There's one called the 60-30-10 budget, which, as you can probably guess, it shifts those percentages around a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they talk about the envelope system, which is a more tangible method.
Yeah.
Where you're actually putting, cash into envelopes for different spending categories. So, groceries in one envelope, entertainment in another. And I think the takeaway here is that, the best system is really the one that you can stick with, the one that clicks with your personality.
Yeah.
And helps you, stay aware of your spending.
Right. I think that makes sense. I mean, we're all different, right? So
Exactly.
So speaking of what works for you, they also talk about setting these specific and realistic savings goals.
Yes.
So why is that such a big deal?
I think goals provide two things. They give you direction and they give you motivation. Whether it's a big goal, like contributing to an IRA, or, maybe a little bit smaller, like making an extra debt payment every month, or even just saving, $5 a week for a little treat.
Yeah.
It makes it feel less abstract and more purposeful when you have that clear target in mind.
Totally.
And they even mention using a savings goal calculator, which can be really helpful.
Oh, yeah.
To actually visualize what you need to save over time.
Right.
So it's not just an idea in your head, it's like a concrete plan.
Yeah, it makes it so much easier to stick with it when you can see where you're going.
Exactly.
And then kind of going along with that, setting that budget and those goals, comes this idea of tracking your spending.
Right. And you can't manage what you don't measure.
Yeah, that's so true.
So, you really need to keep track of what you're spending. And it can be surprising, where that money goes.
It really can.
The article talks about, budgeting apps, which are really great these days.
Yeah.
That can automatically categorize your spending and give you a really clear overview.
They're really good. And I like that they also mention this really simple thing, like counting your spare change at the end of the day.
Yeah, the little things add up.
I know it sounds so small,
but
I actually used to do that. And it's amazing how, you just have a little jar or something.
Makes a difference.
It does. And they also talk about using cash versus credit cards. So can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, there's this concept, psychologists call it the pain of paying.
Pain of paying.
And studies have shown that people spend less when they use cash because there's something about physically handing over that money.
Yeah.
It makes it feel more real than, swiping a card or clicking a button online.
Yeah, it's more of a disconnect.
Exactly. So it's a way to be more mindful about your spending.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
And maybe, curb some of those impulse buys.
So another thing they talked about in this section on budgeting was keeping your savings in a high-yield savings account.
Yeah.
So for someone who maybe just has a regular checking account, Why is that a better idea?
Well, a high-yield savings account is going to give you a much better interest rate than a regular checking account.
Yeah.
So it's essentially like your money's making money while it sits there.
Yeah.
So, it's a good way to boost your savings over time without, really having to do anything extra.
It's like free money, kind of.
In a way, yeah.
And then the last thing I wanted to ask you about in this section was this idea of automating your transfers.
Yeah, I think this is huge for a lot of people because it takes the decision-making out of it.
It does. It really does.
If you set up, an automatic transfer every month or even every paycheck, from your checking account to your savings account, you don't even have to think about it.
And it really does add up.
It does. And it's great for, building that emergency fund.
Yeah.
Or working towards those bigger goals like, buying a house someday.
So we talked about budgeting being that foundation, and now they talk about tackling debt. And I think that's something that holds a lot of people back.
It really does. And
Yeah.
the article, talks about high interest debt as, being a real drain on your budget.
Yeah.
All those interest payments you're making every month is money that could be going towards your savings or your investments.
Yeah.
So the idea is if you pay off your debt faster,
Yeah.
not only do you free up more cash flow, but you save money on interest
That makes sense.
in the long run.
And they specifically talk about student loans, which is a big one for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So what are some of their suggestions for dealing with that kind of debt?
They have a bunch of options.
Yeah.
Things like income-driven repayment plans, where your payments are based on your income
Yeah.
and family size,
Yeah.
so they can offer some relief.
Yeah.
Refinancing your student loans can also be a really good option if you get a lower interest rate.
Yeah.
They also mentioned that a lot of times if you sign up for auto pay, you get a little discount.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it can save you a little bit of money on interest.
Yeah.
And then, of course, making extra payments whenever you can, even if it's a small amount.
It helps.
It's going to help you pay down that principal faster and, reduce the interest.
And how about mortgages? I mean, that's for a lot of people the biggest debt they have.
Yeah, that's a big one. And the article talks about refinancing your mortgage,
Yeah.
which could potentially lower your monthly payments.
Right.
But it's important to look at the whole picture here because there are costs involved in refinancing,
Yeah.
like appraisal fees, closing costs.
Yeah.
So they recommend using a mortgage refinance calculator to see if it really makes sense for you.
Yeah, it's more than just that lower payment. You have to look at the long term.
Exactly.
So let's move on to these recurring monthly bills.
Yeah, those are the ones that just keep coming.
They do. And I feel like that's an area where it's like, how much can you really save?
Right.
Uh,
But the article actually had a lot of great tips
Yeah.
for finding savings in those areas. So let's start with groceries.
Okay.
They recommend, some really simple things like planning your meals. Before you shop, making a list so you don't get tempted by, impulse buys and then, using coupons and taking advantage of loyalty programs.
Right.
These things might seem small,
They do.
but they can really add up.
Especially on something like groceries where you're buying it every week.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so true. I know for me, I'm guilty of sometimes just going to the store without any plan, and then I spend way more.
Yeah, we've all been there.
How about some of the other bills we have, like TV and internet?
Yeah, so this is where the article suggests taking a hard look at what you really need.
Yeah.
Do you actually need all those premium channels?
Right.
Are you really watching all those streaming services?
Yeah.
They point out that you could potentially save like $40 a month
Wow, it's a lot.
just by downsizing your cable package.
That is a lot.
Or, maybe you can cut the cord completely if you're happy with streaming, or, even downgrading your internet speed.
Yeah.
You don't need the fastest plan.
That's true.
And a really great tip they suggest is calling your providers and negotiating.
Oh, I hate doing that.
I know, but it can really be worth it.
Yeah.
Especially for, those recurring costs.
And they actually have a script.
Yeah, they suggest some language you can use.
Oh, that's really helpful.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people feel awkward about that,
Totally.
but it's worth it.
And how about cell phone plans?
Cell phone plans are another one where, there might be room for savings.
Yeah.
So, they recommend looking at things like network quality in your area
Right.
and whether a prepaid or postpaid plan makes more sense for you.
Yeah.
There's so many different carriers and plans out there.
Right.
You can probably find a better deal
Yeah.
than what you're paying now.
So another one that we all have is that electric bill.
Yeah.
So are there ways to save on that other than turning off the lights?
Well, turning off the lights is always a good start. But they have some other ideas too. Some of them are a little bit more of an investment, like improving your home's insulation,
Yeah.
using smart power strips.
What are those?
So a smart power strip, it eliminates that phantom energy drain
Oh.
from devices that are, turned off but still plugged in.
Oh, wow.
They also suggest upgrading to energy-efficient appliances when it's time to replace them.
Okay.
And then getting a smart thermostat to optimize your heating and cooling.
So a lot of these are like one-time things.
Yeah, a little bit more of an upfront investment,
Yeah.
but they can save you money in the long run.
And then they have those like little things you can do,
Yeah.
like unplugging things and turning off the lights.
Yeah, those little habits can really add up.
Yeah. So one of my weaknesses is these recurring subscriptions.
Oh yeah, those are sneaky.
They are. It's so easy to sign up for a free trial.
And forget about it.
And then you see the charge and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I've definitely been there.
So the guide really says, look at your statements every month.
Yeah, go through your credit card statements, your bank statements,
Yeah.
and see, are there any subscriptions you're not using
Yeah.
or, didn't even realize you were still paying for?
That's so true.
And be careful about those free trials that ask for your payment info.
Yeah.
Unless you're really sure you want to continue,
That's a good tip.
because you might forget to cancel.
Okay, so let's switch gears and talk about being a savvy shopper.
Yeah.
So this part had a ton of information.
It really did a lot of good advice in there.
So one of the first things they talk about is, timing those big purchases.
Yeah, like if you need new appliances or furniture,
Yeah.
Look for those annual sales events,
Right.
like, holiday weekends
Yeah.
or end-of-season clearance sales.
Yeah.
They even mention the Prime exclusive sales that Amazon has
Oh, yeah.
a couple of times a year.
For their Prime members.
Yeah, so it's worth waiting
Yeah.
if you can.
And it's not just about seeing something that says sale, right?
Right, you have to make sure it's actually a good deal.
You do.
So they recommend tracking prices over time.
How do you do that?
There's some great tools out there,
Okay.
like browser extensions,
Okay.
like Camelizer for Amazon
Okay.
and PayPal Honey,
Yeah.
which can actually, track those price histories for you and even find coupons
Oh, wow.
automatically.
That's so helpful.
Yeah, so it takes the guesswork out of it.
And I really like this idea of the 30-day rule.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how that works?
Yeah, so the 30-day rule, or you could even do a shorter period of time,
Okay.
but the idea is to avoid impulse buys.
Right.
So if you see something you want, don't buy it right away.
Yeah.
Wait 30 days and see if you still want it.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is they point out that, if you're shopping online, you can put the item in your cart
Yeah.
and then just leave it there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those retailers will actually send you a coupon
They do.
to try to get you to buy it.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so it can actually work in your favor.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
And then they talk about, making online shopping a little less convenient
Okay.
as a way to reduce your spending.
So, like, what do you mean?
So, don't save your billing info on websites.
Right.
And even, delete the shopping apps from your phone.
Okay.
It just puts a little barrier,
A little friction.
a little bit of friction
Yeah.
between you and that impulse buy.
And then another good tip was to stock up on household supplies when they're on sale.
Yeah.
So things like cleaning products and paper towels.
Yeah. Keep track of your inventory.
Yeah.
And when you see a good deal, stock up.
Yeah.
And they also mentioned, using those subscribe and save programs
Oh, yeah.
on Amazon or other places
Yeah.
where you can get, regular deliveries
Yeah.
of those essentials at a discount.
So I am all about consignment stores and thrift stores.
Yeah.
I love them.
It's a great way to save money
It is.
and, be a little bit more sustainable.
Yeah. And you can find amazing stuff.
You really can.
And the guide also talks about gift giving and how to save money there without being cheap.
Yeah. You don't have to sacrifice the thoughtfulness.
Right.
So they suggest maybe making something homemade
Yeah.
or, offering the gift of time.
What's that?
Maybe take someone to a free event
Oh, yeah.
or offer to babysit,
That's a good one.
And they also talk about planning for gift expenses throughout the year,
Yeah.
so set a budget for birthdays, holidays,
Yeah.
and look for sales
That's a good idea.
in advance.
And I love this idea of these like community networks like the Free Cycle Network and Buy Nothing groups.
Yeah, those are fantastic.
Oh, you ever use those?
I have. It's amazing what people give away.
I know.
They're just trying to declutter.
Right.
You can get stuff for free.
And it's better than it ending up in a landfill.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they also say don't forget about birthday freebies.
Oh, yeah.
I love those.
Yeah.
Everybody loves a freebie.
So many companies offer them.
Yeah.
And it's like a little treat.
It is.
Okay, so let's move on to transportation,
Okay.
which is a big expense for a lot of people.
Yeah, it can be.
So how do we save money there?
So they have a few ideas. First of all, refinancing your auto loan.
Yeah.
If you can get a lower interest rate.
Yeah.
Shopping around for cheaper car insurance.
Okay.
That's something a lot of people forget to do.
Yeah.
But you can save a lot of money
Right.
by doing that.
And then they say just driving less.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense.
It does.
But it's not always possible.
Right.
And then they have things like removing extra weight from your car.
Yeah.
And avoiding fast acceleration.
Yeah, all those things can actually affect your gas mileage
Yeah, that's true.
and, save you money on maintenance.
And gas is a big one.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Because we can't control the prices.
Right.
But they do have some suggestions.
Yeah, they say, make sure you're keeping up with your car's maintenance
Okay.
because that can help with fuel efficiency
Yeah.
and, try to combine errands
Right.
into fewer trips.
Yeah.
So you're not driving as much.
And then they talk about gas apps.
Yeah, there are apps that can help you find the cheapest gas in your area.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
And then they also mention these car sharing services.
yeah.
So are those a good way to save money?
They can be.
Okay.
For people who don't drive very often, services like Turo and Get Around can be a lot cheaper
Yeah.
than renting a car.
Right.
And, you really think about it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might even be cheaper to use a car sharing service than to own a car
Yeah.
when you factor in all the costs of owning a car.
Right.
Insurance, maintenance, all that.
So the last thing is entertainment.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to have fun, but it doesn't have to break the bank. So what are some of their tips for that?
Well, one of the biggest ones is just minimizing your restaurant spending. Cooking at home is almost always cheaper
Yeah.
than eating out.
That's true.
But, if you do want to eat out,
Yeah.
they have some ideas for how to save money.
Okay.
So, maybe reduce the frequency.
Right.
Don't go out as often. Take advantage of credit card rewards
Yeah.
that offer dining benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Order an appetizer instead of an entree.
Yeah.
Maybe split an entree
Oh, yeah.
with someone.
It's a good idea.
And, watch out for those drinks and desserts.
Yeah, those add up.
They really do. They can make your bill a lot higher.
So I'm always looking for free stuff to do,
Yeah.
especially in my community. So what do they recommend?
Well, they suggest looking for free admission days at museums
Yeah.
or national parks.
Yep.
Check your community calendar.
Yeah.
See what's going on.
Yeah.
A lot of times libraries and churches
Right.
will have free events. Websites like Eventbrite
Yeah.
can be really helpful for finding, free concerts, festivals, things like that. And don't forget to ask about discounts.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of places offer discounts for seniors, students, military.
So many different groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are good tips. And I think community events are so fun.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to, meet people and...
Be part of your community.
Exactly.
Save money.
And they have a good tip if you are going to those outdoor events.
Yeah.
Pack your own snacks and drinks.
Yeah, it's so much cheaper
I know.
than buying them there.
Okay, so the guide also had some common questions about saving.
Yeah.
And one that I think comes up a lot is how much should you be saving every month?
Yeah. That's a tough one.
It is, because it's different for everyone.
It is. They suggest aiming for 10 to 20% of your gross monthly income
Okay.
as a good starting point.
Yeah.
But they acknowledge that it really depends on your individual circumstances,
Yeah.
your goals,
Yeah.
your stage of life.
Yeah.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all answer.
And how about saving money more quickly?
Well, that goes back to making sure your money's working for you.
Right.
So keeping it in that high-yield savings account
Right.
is really important.
And then the last thing they talk about is building an emergency fund.
Yeah, that's so important.
It is.
You need to have that safety net
Yeah.
for those unexpected expenses.
Yeah.
Or, if you lose your job,
It's so important.
you don't want to have to go into debt
Right.
to cover those things.
So how much should you have in your emergency fund?
They recommend aiming for 3 to 6 months
Okay.
of living expenses.
Okay.
And, those automated transfers
Yeah.
can be a great way to build that up over time.
So we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
This NerdWallet guide is amazing.
Yeah, so much good information.
It is, and I think the biggest takeaway is even those small changes
Yeah.
can make a difference.
Over time, they really add up.
And I think we've given our listeners like a really good action plan
Yeah, I hope so.
to be more financially savvy. So as you're thinking about everything we talked about today, I want you to think about, which of these strategies really speaks to you.
Yeah.
And what can you start doing this week?
Yeah, pick one or two things.
Exactly. And what's one area of your spending that maybe you haven't thought about before that you could improve?
That's a great question.
That's something to think about.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.